Hello, everyone. Dr. Vicky here, speaking to you from the Seeds of Transformation Healing Center. It is time to do the astrology for the sign of Sagittarius. That's Sagittarius Sun, Moon, or Rising for the whole year of 2024. Now, of course, there's a lot happening in the year. And so this is just a general look at the different energies for the sign of Sagittarius. And what I've been doing before I get right to the astrology is I've been selecting an oracle card. This is an oracle card. The energy of this oracle card is for the whole year for you. It's the Plant Spirit Oracle Soulflower Plant Spirit Oracle by Lisa Estabrook, and it is published by Finhorn Press. I do a lot of really good stuff, Finhorn, so anytime I see Finhorn, I'm like, yeah, let's check it out. All right, so we're going to just pick one card for Sag. Periwinkle, intertwining. Okay, and I'll read this to you in a second. Just check the card out. Periwinkle. It says, all is well. All is as it should be. Periwinkle is here to help you to weave together all the lessons and experiences of the past. All the wisdom gained so that you can move forward with understanding, compassion, and forgiveness. Growth is assured as you find the courage to examine and explore new facets of yourself. Intertwining. So taking the lessons of the past and intertwining it with the new experiences of the new, that is your card for the year. All right. And you know, Sagittarius is all about experience. So there you go. All right, let's get started. Let's take a look here. Okay, so we're looking at the sign of Sagittarius for 2024. Sagittarius is a mutable fire sign. Your mantra, as it is I see it all. From the top of the mountain, I am Sagittarius. Well, none of that other stuff. Well, I mean, that stuff applies, but that's not the mantra. The mantra is I see. I've embellished it a bit. And the ruling planet is Jupiter. Jupiter, the planet of expansion. Let's see what's going on. So, a couple of things. Now, you are a Jupiter-ruled sign, Sagittarius, as you probably know. And Jupiter does change signs this year. It's in Taurus. It's been in Taurus. It starts the year in Taurus. It's been in Taurus since May of 2023, and it leaves Taurus at the end of May 2024. May 25th, I believe. Let me just check my notes here. I want to be accurate. May 25th, and it moves into Gemini. And so your ruling planet changing from Earth to air changes your focus a bit. In Earth, you would have had a more practical, perhaps, focus, more about nuts and bolts, very, very sort of earthy kind of energy affecting your Sagittarius. Now it moves into air, and air is much more about the mind. It's about information. It's about perhaps disseminating your knowledge. And of course, you're a Sagittarius, so you love doing that anyway. That means that Jupiter has moved from your house of health. So, of course, while Jupiter's been in Taurus, there's been a focus on health. Perhaps you've had to consciously apply certain things to your health and your well-being in order to sustain yourself or strengthen yourself. We do have Uranus in that sixth house still. It's in Taurus for 7 years. And so that does challenge your health a bit, but it also challenges you to open up to new things, new ideas, new sort of out of the box solutions around your health, around your service work, and around your day-to-day responsibilities. So your day-to-day responsibilities are kind of jazzed up by Uranus. Once Jupiter moves into Gemini, it's moving into your house of relationship. So your relationships become a focus with your ruling planet in that house. Jupiter is an energy of freedom. And sometimes in Jupiter, although it's considered lucky and benefic and all those things, wherever it might fall, it can also bring a freedom. So for some Sagittarius, is Jupiter in the seventh house can free them from relationships that have held them down, that they felt stultified in. Okay, Jupiter, you want to be free to be yourself, and Jupiter can help with that. It can also expand communication in your relationships, and it can expand communication and open up discussions about partnerships of all kinds, marriage, business partnerships, even you and an open enemy, if you even have any. All right. So that's Jupiter. That's the Jupiter story. Mercury goes retrograde 3 times. That's not unusual. Goes retrograde either 3 or sometimes 4 times in a year. But all the Mercury retrogrades are in fire, save for the one that happens in the summer, which starts in Virgo and then moves back into Leo. So they're, for the most part, the energy of the Mercury retrogrades are fiery energies. The first one will happen on April Fool's Day. Mercury goes retrograde at 28 degrees of Aries and moves all the way back to 17 degrees of Aries and goes direct on the 25th of April, which in the United States is tax season. Like that's the whole tax season thing. So that should be interesting. If you happen to be a tax accountant of some sort, know that you have to give yourself a little more time, perhaps because things might have to be done twice with Mercury retrograde. The second Mercury retrograde starts in Virgo. It starts at 4 degrees of Virgo and goes all the way back to 22 degrees of Leo. It's sort of half and half, but spends more time in the fire signs there. So I would consider it a fire energy. And we can see that here. I've indicated that here we have Mercury in Virgo, turns retrograde, goes back into Leo. Now, either way, whatever sign it's in, Mercury is up here at the top of the chart. So this is an energy that will be very evident for people. And so, Mercury retrogrades are not necessarily a bad thing. It just requires you to find the answers within, really, to be much more introspective, to not take things at face value, and to really sort of take it in and look it over before you make decisions on how you're going to move forward. It's kind of an opportunity. We live in a kind of a go, go, go world. And when Mercury's retrograde, we have an opportunity, or we need to take the opportunity to sort of step back and reevaluate whatever themes are coming up. And in fire, the themes are spirit and inspiration and creativity and the right to be yourself. All of these things come up with the energy of fire. And then, of course, the little bit of Virgo, there's some question about health and taking care of your health. Now, that retrograde happens on August 5th, and it goes direct on August 28th. And so that's about 23 days it's retrograde. And then the last retrograde happens in your sign, Sagittarius, and we can see that right here. It begins at 22 degrees of Sag and moves all the way back to 7 degrees of Sag. So you Sages, wherever your Sag planets are, if it's anywhere between 7 and 22 degrees, that Mercury is going to go over 3 times. And that really gives us an opportunity to do something, and then maybe it doesn't work out, and then you sort of re-examine it, and then you do it again, and then it starts to move forward. And it is your first house, so it's your house of identity, but it's also your house of your physical body. So you do need to continue to pay attention to that. Those dates on that are November 26th to December 14th, Of course, that is during the holiday season. So that should be interesting. And if your birthday, it happens to be, let's see, so the 26th, is Sag. So, yeah, so it's all Sag. So if your birthday falls between, say, those dates, actually, if your sun is in those dates, you know you're going to have a Mercury retrograde for the year in your solar return chart. All right. So Mars, the planet of energy, starts in Sagittarius. The last degrees is at 28 degrees of Sag, I believe, and goes all the way to 6 degrees, 7 degrees of Leo. And then it goes retrograde in Leo. But that happens on the 6th of December. So for those people born December 6th and later that are Sagittarius, you're going to come in with a Mars retrograde in your chart as well. Okay. So some of you may actually have a Mars retrograde and a Mercury retrograde. Again, retrogrades are all about rethinking, going over things. And with Mars, it's how am I expending my energy, right? How am I spending my energy? Is it serving me or is it not? And then eventually that retrograde goes into the next year and goes into the sign of Cancer. And Cancer usually brings up issues of self-care and self-nurturance. So those are things that you need to pay attention to. You know, life is very exciting. There's all kinds of opportunities coming in, but you do have to remember the lessons of the past. And I think one of the lessons of the past for you is that you need to make sure you take care of your vehicle, as it were, your physical body, as you roam around the world, being a Sagittarius, taking on every adventure that is handed to you, or in some that aren't. But that's another story for another day. All right. What else? Saturn. Saturn is in Pisces all year. Starts at around 4 or 5 of Pisces and goes up to 20 degrees of Pisces. So if you have any Pisces in your chart, those are the degrees that Saturn will be going over 3 times. Excuse me. If those are the degrees that Saturn is going to go over, not 3 times necessarily. There is a retrograde period. Those things I talk about in my monthly tarot scopes a little bit more, to be more specific for each sign every month. So you can check that out each month to see what is Saturn doing and where is it? What degree is it at? And is it hitting any of my planets? So you can check that out that way. Neptune, of course, is in Pisces, has been there since 2011, doesn't leave until 2026, I believe. And so we still have a few more years in Pisces. It's at the end of Pisces. So when we get to the end of a sign, there's a certain amount of culmination, and things can get very intense at the end of a sign. Neptune rules water, oceans, flooding, things like that. Whereas we're coming at the end of Pluto and Capricorn, right? As we enter this year, and I'm going to talk about that next. Pluto starts the year in Capricorn, goes out back into Aquarius, then back into Capricorn for about 2.5 months, and then it's out of Capricorn. But the ending of Capricorn this coming year and 2023 has been very intense with the energy of Capricorn, which can be at times a power over dynamic. And we can see that in the outer world and how we're fighting back against that as we move into a more Aquarian, egalitarian, like worldview, really. Our worldview is changing and it's becoming much more Aquarian. And part of the reason for that is that we have the technology to kind of know what's going on around the world. Our challenge is figuring out what's true and what's not true. So there's that AI thing that's going to be an issue, but that's another discussion. We're not going to talk about that today. As I said, Pluto is moving from Capricorn into Aquarius. Pluto has been in your second house, transforming your sense of values, especially how you feel about yourself. It's now going to be moving into your house of the mind. So your mind deepens, if there's even that's even possible. Lots and lots of information. probably lots of writing. Pluto is there for 20 years, so there's no rush. If you have your great novel to write, don't worry about it. You have 20 years to do it. So that's good. All right, what haven't I talked about? I talked about Uranus. I talked about Neptune and Saturn. I haven't talked about, I haven't talked about Mars. Have I? Well, I'll just say it in case I did, I'll repeat myself. And if I didn't, Mars starts the year in the latter degrees of your sign, Sagittarius. I think like 28 degrees, something like that. Goes all the way to 6, 7 degrees of Leo, where it turns retrograde. I think I talked about that, right? Okay, so I did talk about that. Hopefully I did. It's funny, it goes in and it goes out. Sorry about that, guys, just the way it works. We do have, of course, we have eclipses. We have a North Node eclipse season, which is happening in spring up here in the Northern Hemisphere. And we have a South Node eclipse season, which is happening in the fall in the Northern Hemisphere. And that switches if you happen to be in the Southern Hemisphere. The first we get lunar eclipses, and then we get solar eclipses in this eclipse season. The first thing we see is we see a lunar eclipse. It's a full moon lunar eclipse at 7 degrees of Libra. That happens on the 26th of March. And then 2 weeks later, we have the new moon eclipse, which happens in Aries. It happens at 20 degrees of Aries, and it happens on the 8th of April. Now, that particular eclipse is actually, you can see it in the United States total, and the path of totality goes from Maine to, I think, Texas. And so there was another eclipse back in 2017 that went from Oregon to, I think, South Carolina. And this one, so that path is there, sort of cut the United States in half. And now we have this one coming this way. And so we have X marks the spot on that. And that X is around Southern Illinois, Kentucky, Arkansas. What else is over there? And Tennessee, I think. It's in that general vicinity. A very politically active area. A lot of changes happening there, especially locally. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that works out when the eclipse comes. And eclipses, they happen, but they get activated, and there's always a shift or a change, like a sea change in things with eclipses. So we'll see how that manifests itself. Powerful eclipse. If you happen to have anything on 20 of Aries or around 20 of Aries, it's going to affect something powerfully for you. In your chart, it falls in your 5th house of creative self-expression. So this can be an opportunity to do that, to creatively self-express in a new way. The axis, the nodes of the moon, we have the North Node in Aries, we have the South Node in Libra. I'll get to the other eclipse. I just want to point out that the North Node in Aries requires us to be our authentic self, and it's in your 5th house of self-expression. And so it's maybe even expressing about yourself or your creativity, right? And you have to be willing to initiate something new, because it's Aries. Aries is always about new, right? It's like it's initiatory, somewhat irritating, but it does sort of drive us. And when Aries is in charge, when the North Node is in Aries, Mars is sort of in charge of things in its way. So Mars sort of forwards us to the future. And you're spending a lot of time with Mars in a very introspective part of your chart, with a little bit of like bringing your head out out into the world. You will have more of that next year in 2025, where you'll spend most of your time out in the big wide world. But you're still sort of brewing something in this year with Mars. The South Node is in Libra, in your 11th house of friends, networks, tribes. You might actually, the South Node is a release point. In Libra, it can be relationships that no longer serve us, maybe to friends, or also just how we relate. How does it serve us and how doesn't it? And what do we need to let go of? Now let's talk about that South Node eclipse, which is in the fall for the Northern Hemisphere, and the spring for the Southern Hemisphere. That eclipse happens. We start with the full moon lunar eclipse, And we get the full moon lunar eclipse in the sign of Pisces. Yes. Yes. 26 degrees of Pisces. It falls in your fourth house. It is a south node eclipse. Um, and so there's a realization around something that has to do with maybe your family of origin issues. Your fourth house is your house of your ancestry, really, your ancestors. And then we have a new moon solar eclipse on the 2nd of October at 11 degrees of Libra, and that is on the south node. And so it's a new beginning, but it also has to do with a releasing because we're in the south node. So before you can really like start something, you need to let go of something first. And the full moon in Pisces is going to give you an idea of what that might be because that comes first. All right, let's make sure I talked about everything. I believe I talked about everything. I talked about Uranus, I talked about Jupiter, I talked about Mars, I talked about the nodes, I talked about the full moon. I think I talked about it, and Pluto. I think I've covered it all. Okay, let's stop the share here. All right. So, yeah, so that's the year. Of course, this is just a very general reading. If you want more specifics, check out my taroscopes every month. They usually come out either the last couple of days of the previous month, or they come out right on the first. If you're a patron of mine, if you're on Patreon, you get those first. So you get the like skinny first. If you'd like to be a patron, there is a link below for that. For as little as $5 a month, you can support my work. And if you support my work, I can do more and you can learn more. And I'm willing to give as long as I can maintain myself by doing that, right? Okay. What else? What else? What else? What else? If you want to know what's going on in your chart specifically, again, a personal reading is the best thing to get. I do personal readings. They're a combination of astrology, numerology, and the tree of life, the Kabbalah. Most people really enjoy it. It's very illuminating. I myself had one back in 1999 and it changed my life. And I said, I got to do this. This is what I got to do. And so that's what I'm doing. Um, and it really did help me focus at a time when at the time I didn't really know I had to refocus on something, but things happened after that that this kind of work prepared me to move through a little more gracefully, although I'm not sure how gracefully I did it, but I feel good now, so that's all that matters. And that's it. So have yourself a great year. Have yourself a great month. Have yourself a great day. Have yourself a great life. Hopefully, I will see you on the journey. Until then, namaste. Take care, everyone.